Hey everybody. Today, a teenager runs away to join the circus. We discuss great monster makeup. And we ask the question, how do you bounce a kid off a planet's atmosphere? Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Shereese, today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 18, entitled Coming of Age. This episode was written by Sandy Fries and directed by Mike Vehar. The star date is 41416.2, and the original air date was March 14th, 1988, which every time I see dates like that, it just kind of brings me back, like, where was I as a 6-year-old when this was airing?
Yeah, I had just turned 4, like 2 months before that. So I was probably watching this episode.
Maybe you were. You might have been. Well, when I saw who had written this episode, I don't know anything about the writer other than his or her name, I'm not sure, is Sandy Fries. And I thought, that is the coolest name. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like something from the Magic School Bus.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of cool. All right, let's just sink our teeth into this plot. This episode is the beginning of that conspiracy story arc, which I know you love. And it doesn't really give us a whole lot, but it gives us like something. We know something is off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So Captain Picard greets his friend, Admiral Gregory Quinn, and his assistant, Lieutenant Commander Dexter Remick, who's a total dick, aboard the Enterprise. I'll get into that. For classified reasons, Quinn has ordered Remick to perform an investigation of the Enterprise and its crew and expects Picard to fully cooperate. Remick's inquiry causes tension in the crew, particularly when he questions the trustworthiness of the senior staff based on their personal logs and past actions. Meanwhile, Wesley Crusher prepares to take the Academy entrance exam. He succeeds in passing several parts of the exam and helps Mordock, a highly talented Benzite and fellow competitor, to solve a difficult test problem so they may both advance. So, Shereese, let me just jump in. I only have one little bit of trivia for this episode. There was a scene that did not make it to the final cut of the crew celebrating Wesley's 16th birthday because they were presuming that he wouldn't be on the ship at the time due to joining the Academy. And I really wish we could have seen that. That would have been so sweet.
That would have been really sweet.
I know.
It would have been the weirdest 16-year-old's birthday ever because I feel like there would have been no kids.
No, there would have been no kids and Captain Picard would have been awkward as hell. But yeah. I feel like it still would have been really sweet.
It would have been sweet. Maybe he could have had a banner that said Wesley Crusher Day.
Or maybe Family Love Wesley.
That'd be awesome, yeah. Oh, well.
That's an Arrested throwback, but whatever.
Yes, if you guys haven't noticed, we are big fans of Arrested Development, and we probably quote something from that show in every one of our TNG episodes.
Or The Office. Or The Office, for sure.
So look for those little Easter eggs if you're fans of either of those shows. Okay, overall thoughts about this episode?
I like that it starts that story arc of conspiracy. I like that there's some sniffing around and we don't totally know like where it's going to lead. I do like that Remick, who's a complete horrible, awful person to deal with, he does ask very pertinent questions about past episodes, like where no one has gone before, like Captain Picard lost control of the ship and you guys ended up in the M33 galaxy. And then in Justice, you broke the Prime Directive by fiddling around with the Edo. Like those were questions I feel like were valid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I first started watching the episode, like when it opened, and we'll get into the beat by beat, I was like, what the heck is this episode about? I don't remember this at all. What is going on? And then when I saw Remick come on board, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I was like, here we start the story arc that ends with conspiracy. And I was so excited about it because this is the only story arc, as far as I remember, but I guess I'll see if this is true. But as far as I remember, this is the only story arc in all of season 1. So far, they've just been these one-off stories. Each episode has nothing to do with the episode before, has nothing to do with the episode after, which is totally fine. That's normal and expected for, any kind of a sitcom or any kind of like a TV show that just goes on and on. But this was fun because Conspiracy is actually one of my favorite episodes of season 1 because it's just like, it's just so mysterious and everything. And so this is the start of that. And so for that reason, I was excited to see it. Having said that, watching the episode and watching Remick was like so painful. I was like, oh, this guy is such a jerk.
He just made my teeth he set my teeth on edge, just the way he was talking. And the way that the actor came across, like slamming his hands on the table and standing up and being like, "Are you afraid I'm going to find something?" Mm-hmm. Okay, so last Wednesday, where were you? It's like, that doesn't, okay.
He was good. He was good cop, bad cop, rolled into one.
Yeah, he was like bipolar, multiple personality, good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, and like you said, he did ask pertinent questions, but he asked them in like the most rude and abrasive way. Yes. But we'll get to that.
Yes. All right, so let's open up this episode. It starts off with this very distraught looking, like 18-year-old or some youth.
No, probably like another 15-year-old. His name's Jake.
Jake, yes, and he's looking upset. And Wesley runs up and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm really sorry." And we're going, "What is this about?" But it is nice to see. I just thought, oh, Wesley has a little friend finally.
I thought Wesley was breaking up with him from the way he was like, "Hey, we need to talk. Can we talk?" I was just like, oh, what is going on here? Like, what situation just happened between these two? And then I heard the conversation. I was like, oh, that's
yeah.
Sweet.
So really it looks like they were both testing, or they were both trying out to get into this like super special Starfleet Academy entrance exam. And Jake didn't make it, and Wesley did. So Wesley is being a good friend and feeling sorry for his friend who really wanted it. But did you notice that Dr. Crusher orders Wesley to report to Transporter Room 8?
No, I did not notice
Transporter Room 8 up in here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just now seen for the first time ever Transporter Room 8.
Yeah, and probably only.
Yeah, we need to keep a track of whenever we see the other supposed 27 transporters on the ship.
Yes,
make a cameo appearance.
In the episode 11001001, mouthful, we learn that the Enterprise has at least 20 transporter rooms because the scene cut out as the transporter rooms are being counted. So this is the first time I've ever heard report to Transporter Room 8. I was like, ooh. Thank God I was listening to that background in that other episode, because I would have been like, 8? What are you even talking about, 8?
It makes me feel like the entire Enterprise is nothing but transporter rooms. But anyways.
Yes, and cargo holds, yeah.
And cargo holds, exactly.
So he goes to Transporter Room 8. And we see kind of a couple of key senior staff members wishing him well, and his mom gives him a big hug, and he's going off to test for Starfleet Academy. Do you notice he doesn't even take anything with him? He's just like, ready. I was like, you don't even, usually when they travel, they take one of those little like super cool looking, like cylindrical, like hard cases.
Right.
I was like, oh, he didn't even pack anything?
Nope. I mean, I guess like camping or going off to boarding school or something, like they've got everything you need.
Yeah, I guess.
And he only wears that sweater every day, so like whatever.
That's true.
Plus you can replicate clothes in the future, so you don't actually need to, and then you can recycle it in the replicator. You don't actually need to bring anything with you. So I did
think about that, and you know what? I figured you would say that. I was like, Shereese is probably going to mention that he can replicate his clothes. So, okay. I love this transporter sequence. I don't know if you noticed it. Wesley disappears, and like 1 second later, Admiral Quinn and Commander Remick appear.
I absolutely noticed that. And then I was like, wait, so you need one person to beam down before you could beam someone up? Pretty sure you could do that at the same time.
No, I mean,
I don't know if you guys are using your technology to the best of its ability.
You could, but I feel like it's a little bit like an elevator. Some people have to get off before some people can get on.
But I feel like it's exactly not that. As a transporter, that's its whole function. However, from a special effects perspective, it looked a lot better to have it go in sequence than have it at the same time, because then you could really appreciate like the cool glitter water that they use to make that transporter look. You could really appreciate it as Wesley disappears and as the Admiral shows up. So part of me was just like, you don't need to wait. Like technology-wise, you just push the button and it happens instantaneously.
Yeah.
But as a viewer, I was like, oh, that's so nice. Like,
it is so, like that. It was very satisfying. It was really satisfying. Yeah. So Admiral Quinn comes aboard. Remick isn't really saying much, but Quinn is like, I need to speak to you, Picard. And I think he calls him Jean-Luc. So they've known each other for years.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, well, Commander Riker, why don't you join us? And he goes, alone. Like, nobody. Mm-hmm. So this is the start of that conspiracy. And I wrote in my notes, bum, bum, bum. That's what I wrote. It's like, this is super cool. Like, now something is happening. And he talks to Picard and he gives him really no information, just saying, this ship is under investigation and you are ordered to cooperate fully.
Which I feel like he could have said in front of Riker. That did not need to be a backroom conversation. And I always just felt like this is like such a big picture of, I don't want to say toxic leadership because I don't actually know what that phrase means, but I do want to say it's crappy leadership to be like, listen to me and I will not explain myself. It's just like, you don't have to explain everything, but you have to give me something.
It doesn't breed a sense of
Trust.
Exactly. There's no sense of, it doesn't breed a sense of confidence at all.
No, and it doesn't make me want to participate and help out when you're just like, this is above your head. Do as I say. It's like, wait a minute, you came on my ship, buddy. Like, you need to tell me something. And then we've got, Riker's out there. Everybody's freaking out. Everyone's like, what the heck is going on? And, Riker's being left in the dark, which is not the way that their crew is structured.
No.
The bridge crew's being left in the dark, which is not the way it's structured. Like, even if they're secrets, Picard will tell them something, right? So that they at least, have that confidence, have that trust. And so when Riker's like, I'm going to find out what's going on. I was just like, ooh, Picard's going to get it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, do you know what's going on, sir? And he's just like, no, I don't even know what's going on. Even if I knew, I couldn't tell you, but I don't even know. So we just have to cooperate. Oh, well.
Yeah. See, that's exactly why I thought Riker could have been in on that meeting. I agree with you, because the tiny little bit that Quinn told to Picard immediately told Riker when Riker asked, like, we're under investigation and we have to cooperate. End of sentence. That's all I know.
That's all he said. You could have said that in the transporter room in front of Remick and the transporter chief.
He could have said that in front of Wesley. Like, everybody has to cooperate. End of sentence. That's it. Like, just leave it at that. But all right. So down on the planet, Wesley meets a girl, a very pretty girl whose name is Oleana, and she has already heard of him. So Wesley's reputation precedes him, which I think is pretty awesome. It precedes him. So he's like, what? People know who I am? Like, Wesley's got a little bit of it's like a little bit of a Harry Potter moment where it's like, people know about me? Really? Cool. So then we see a Romulan, and then we see Mordok, who's a Benzite alien. First time we've ever seen this alien race. Can we just talk for a minute about how freaking cool his costume was with that steam inhaler?
Yeah, with his little breathing tube so he can breathe the right mixture of oxygen and nitrogen or whatever he breathes on his watery planet. This people is the opposite of the Antikins and the Sele.
Yep.
This is glorious. This is beautiful craftsmanship. His monster makeup is gorgeous.
Yes.
And that little addition of the breathing apparatus was so novel. I was just like, yeah, that's true, because if you think about it, on the ship, it's like everyone's breathing the same oxygen, nitrogen mixture of atmosphere that you would find on Earth, but supposedly we're all from different planets, and so you would have different kinds of atmosphere. So yeah, that does make sense. And I think the reason they did it for him, though, is because he's kind of like an aquatic alien, and so they're trying to show he needs to have he needs to breathe water or whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like he's amphibious almost or something.
Right. But whatever, it was still amazing.
It was brilliant, and you're absolutely right. So the Antikins and the Sele were just around for one episode, and Mordok is only around for one episode. In a subsequent season, we do see one other Benzite, and that's it. So Mordok is essentially like a throwaway costume, but
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's in diametric opposition to the quality of the Antikins and the Sele, which were also throwaways. But this guy, oh my God, Mordok's outfit and the makeup and the steam and how he only from time to time kind of leans into it. So it's not
constant. Yeah.
Yes. It's not constant and grating. I was like, kudos to the costuming and makeup department because they absolutely slayed it.
It was glorious.
It was one of the, I'm going to vote this best monster makeup of season 1, hands down.
I might have to agree. I mean, I'll look back through, but it was pretty cool. Maybe we'll have to say best monster makeup of an alien that looks totally non-earthly, right? Because we had some really cool Earth makeups where it's just the little nose ridges. Yeah, in our episode with the drug dealer aliens and the drug addict aliens.
Yes,
they just had some little nose ridges, and I thought that was actually kind of nice. It was a nice subtle costume.
It's not. Yeah. It's a subtle difference, but it's not it's not this gigantic, huge thing. I mean. Also, I think we can't really continue this conversation without mentioning how amazing Worf's makeup is, his Klingon makeup. And
his has been amazing from the beginning. From
the absolute beginning, he's been fabulous. So, but as far as guest aliens go, I give this the top, the actual, the top grade. It's amazing. Yeah, so
we'll give it 11 fingers up.
All right, so. Remick, back on the ship, Remick is poking around and just rubbing everybody the wrong way. He's asking questions of Riker and Remick have this extremely dramatic, like, tell me where he was on the night of the 13th. And Riker's like, why do you want to know? It's just very intense. And Riker and Remick are clashing. And one point they have a clash like in full view of everyone on the bridge.
Yeah, this moment was so awesome. I totally wrote it down. I was like, whoa, Riker just totally put Remick on blast. Because Remick is like, I'm ready for you now. He was going around like, see, there's a way to do these things, right? He could have done this in a very like, okay, I'm going to be meeting with your staff one at a time. I'm going to call you in, yada, yada. Like he could have done it that way, but he didn't. He decided to be like, I'll call you when I'm ready to call you, just being a jerk about it. And so he's like, all right, Riker, it's your turn. And he's just like, no, not now. And he's like, I said you need to come on. And he was like, I said not now. And just walks away. And I was like, ooh. And everybody's just looking. It's like that moment on the schoolyard when you're like, are they going to fight? And everyone's just looking. And the second someone swings, everyone's going to go around them in a big circle going, fight, fight, fight.
Yes.
No one's breaking this up.
No.
Everybody wants to see this happen.
Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. Remick is a terrible example of somebody who's given some power. I don't know if this is the correct phrase, but I often use it. But people like this, I think of as jealous of the little power that they have. Like they have a nickel's worth of power and they're treating it like $100 bill where it's like, I've got all this power over you and you're going to do as I say. And I've noticed people in position of power who are successful are often like a soft touch. They're not throwing their weight around. And if it comes to like something severe where you have to throw your weight around, it's so much more impactful if you haven't just spent your entire career throwing your weight around. It's like somebody who never gets angry, and then when they get mad, you're like, oh crap.
Right. There's a noticeable difference.
Yes. At Remick running around demanding people answer his questions, it's just absolutely the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like Data was the only one who was just like, I'm happy to answer your questions, where everybody else was just like, what do you want, Remick? Like, get out of here, And and I love the scene too. I mean, this is pretty much, I don't know how much detail we'll get in with Remick because it's like a one-trick pony. Basically, he interviews the crew one by one, and he asks them the same questions, like, tell me the truth, this and this and that. And he's trying to like, try good cop, trying bad cop. And so he's just trying different things, and it's very unsuccessful. He has this moment with Data where he's like, you're an android. You can't lie. Look at the data. Tell me what's wrong. This data is it's undeniable that Picard is like dirty, right? And Data's just like, no, it's your premise that's flawed. Like your assumption is flawed because all of this information is actually accurate. And you're right. I can't lie. So that is the end.
I loved that. He just put him in his place. Data put Remick in his place so perfectly.
In a very unemotional, matter of fact.
Just matter of fact, and can't be emotional because he's an android, but amazing that he just said, it stands to reason that if our information is correct, then the premise upon which you have based your assumption is incorrect. And that's the only explanation. It's like, oh, Data, thank you. You just karate chopped him in the neck.
Yep. Which if he did, his head would probably fall off.
I do like though the way that the scene is constructed when Remick is interviewing, and it goes back and forth between, like, you see Data's face and then Remick's face, and then when you see Remick's face, you assume it's going to pan back to Data, but then now it's Worf, and then now it's Dr. Crusher, and then it's Counselor Troy. It's like,
that was a really beautifully done scene, because it also explained his like why he was like, tell me the truth now, tell me the truth. Like it explains why he was doing that, because he was kind of changing with each person, right?
Yeah, and I love that it very elegantly shows how tedious and how time-consuming all of his interviews have been, but they did it beautifully in just this short little span of time to show, like, you're still in the room, and now it's Dr. Crusher, and I love Dr. Crusher's responses, too. She just was like, this is none of your business. Like,
and she said it in the nicest way, because he was trying to be good cop on her, right? He was all like, you can tell me, anything you say is confidential. And she's just like, my relationship is none of your business.
Yeah. So suck it.
So sweet. Yeah. So sweet. Like, I can be just as sugary sweet. Are we done now?
Yes.
It was really cool too, because you got to see like a little glimpse of each character's personality as well, which was really cool. I do really like how they did that scene, and they showed like a span of time in like just a quick few seconds that really was perfect. It was like the perfect bite-sized mix.
It really was.
So Wes is on the planet. and these are the two storylines going on. We have the Remick. We've kind of done with that until the end.
Yeah.
Now we've got Wesley's storyline and what's going on with him. So he's on the planet. He meets this girl who's like, it's a good thing you're cute or else you'd be obnoxious. And he's like, she thinks I'm cute. Oh my God. First time having a crush, maybe.
I totally saw that. And I was like, oh my God, that sums up Wesley perfectly. Because you and I, as little girls, were like, he's so cute, right?
Yep,
we had these little girly crushes on him as little kids. But that explains perfectly why in rewatching this series for this podcast, I'm like, God, yeah, Wesley is obnoxious. Like, he's just written as an obnoxious character. And it is a good thing he's so adorable, because otherwise it'd be like, shut up, just shut up, which is where Shut Up Wesley comes from. But yeah, she basically summed up how the audience feels. Like, the good thing you're cute.
All the girls in the audience felt.
Yeah.
All the young girls.
and plenty of young boys too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Just,
although so far all the male guests we've had have just very much hated Wesley. Very, very much. But I'm sure there's some out there who didn't.
Yeah, our guests have been the first to jump on the let's dump on Wesley train. But anyway, so yeah, he has this little crush, and he's pretty much killing it on the exams, which I had a problem with the exam. Because the exam does the same question for the four of them, and just it gives the question, it reads the question to you, or it announces the question. So you can't even read it, which I'd have a problem with. Because if you gave me a math question to solve audibly, I'd have a problem with that. Give me something to look at. Give me something to, I didn't like that. I was like, this is a terrible exam. This exam is awful.
Yeah, not only is the exam kind of weird, but it's like, the exam's not just what they're looking at on their screens. The exam's happening in the hallways. The exam's happening in the holodeck. The exam's happening throughout their time on this, wherever they are, on the station or the ship or wherever they are. And at the beginning, the guy who's administering the exam says to everybody, you guys need to expect the unexpected. And I just was like, I have never understood why people say that. You cannot expect the unexpected.
You just can't.
By definition, you don't expect it. So I'm like, what is that even? I don't, I've never understood when people say that. What exactly, do you mean you want me to be on my guard for weird things to happen? Do you mean you want me to not be surprised? I don't know. Expect the unexpected is just the worst piece of advice I've ever heard in the history of advice.
I think you summed that up though perfectly. Those are two things. Should I be on my guard for weird things to happen? Should I not be surprised when strange things happen? But yeah, expect the unexpected. It's like saying plot twist and then walking away. It's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that information? I don't know. Now I don't know what's going to happen. And do I jump down somebody's throat if they bump into me in the hallway? And is that part of the test? Or do I have to be polite because that might be some
or is that part of the test?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's because if it's not part of the test, I've just been a complete dick to somebody, and that's going to reflect poorly on me. So now I don't know what to do. See, that kind of stuff just gives me anxiety. I don't like it. I probably wouldn't be great at the Starfleet entrance exam. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you and I might not be getting into Starfleet, but that's okay. I also wouldn't apply it. I don't know if I would apply at 16.
No,
I don't know. Maybe I'd wait a little bit.
Maybe not so much. Okay, so can we talk about the super cool moment where Jake steals the shuttlecraft and is off to join? He's basically running away to join the circus.
That's exactly what he's doing. The space circus. He's going to go join the Ferengi.
He's going to go join. He's going to join a freighter. He's basically doing the I'm going to hop on a train and be a hobo for a while.
He's got his stick and his bag with what's even in that bag?
Nothing, because the replicator can do anything you need.
He doesn't even have a stick in a bag.
He doesn't even have a stick in a handkerchief. Yeah. There's actually a name for that, but I always thought of that as a hobo bag.
Of course there is.
Of course there's a name.
Of course there's a name for that.
But there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Behind the scenes wise, I found out that they only built a quarter of the space shuttle or the shuttlecraft because that was all they really needed at the time, and budget wise that there's not really a whole lot of shuttlecraft scenes in season 1. So they built just the quarter of it. And then they decided to kind of separately build the rest for later seasons, thinking ooh, we could actually do a lot of shuttlecraft scenes. And so they made this critical error where they built the pieces separately, and then when they went to join them, they didn't all fit. So it was like the scale was off. So that was a whoopsie. Thank God you guys don't work for Boeing. Like plane pieces that don't fit. But anyway, there was that. And then did you notice it was basically like the lights behind him were just like Christmas lights, like white Christmas lights that were just sort of like behind.
I didn't notice anything about, all I noticed was he was in a shuttle. I didn't really pay attention to the little details because I was just more focused on the big picture that this guy had that this kid has just stolen a shuttlecraft. Like, I get that you're running away because whatever, like you feel like you failed and you don't want people to know, but maybe don't take a shuttle. Maybe you need to like do a site-to-site transport or something. Because I was just like, that's like stealing a car. Like, that's somebody else's property.
Yeah. Yes. There's absolutely
that's more what I was thinking. I was like, that's like part of the ship. You can't send that back. Like, what are you doing?
That's a problem. But the bigger problem is you're in a motherfucking shuttlecraft that can go quarter impulse power. And the Enterprise is like, okay, I can go warp 9. So I'm just going to follow you along until you decide to come back, or we're going to tractor beam you, or we're going to something. Right. So that was a bad idea.
So he leaves the ship because he feels like a failure and he feels like he let down his dad and he, he's just not up to snuff. So it was actually really good that Wes had come to check on him earlier because he was very right in intuiting that this kid's not doing well, even though he's like, I guess it's okay. Like he's not doing well. He's not taking the setback well. And so then the shuttle kind of like loses attitude control and starts to like go into the atmosphere and it's like going to burn up and he's going to die. And, this has suddenly turned into, this is kind of like the trope that we see a lot in season 1. Suddenly someone's going to die. This is like really awful, right? Because he's just like, I'm a failure. I'm not worth anything. I'm getting out of here. And, Picard's like, son, get back here right now. Yeah. Get a tractor beam on him. Like, this is not okay. And then all of a sudden now it's a life or death situation. Now he's not so like, whatever, just let me die. Now he's like, help me, somebody help me. Like, I changed my mind. I want to come back, I
want to live. Yes.
I thought this is like so perfect because this is exactly what happens when you're at that age. This is exactly what happens. You do stupid crap and then you're like, help me. Yeah.
Yes, you make rash decisions and then you're immediately like, oh no, I need help. Absolutely. So Picard has this good leader moment, which we've talked about. We talked about this in our intro episode, where one of the things that we love about Picard is he's tried a couple of things, but this space shuttle is now about to enter the atmosphere of the planet. It's going to burn up. And so he goes, options, because the tractor beam's not going to work. They can't transport him out because there's too much interference magically. So he does options. And it is such a wonderful Picard moment. And that really encapsulates what makes Picard such a great leader, because he is not the person, he's not a toxic leader that's like, I have all the answers all the time.
Or the kind of leader who's like, you're just going to listen to me and I'm not going to give you any information and I'm not going to trust you so that you don't have to trust me. Yeah, exactly. He's not just do what I say and this kid will be fine.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I love those scenes when he does that. This is the kind of leader I want to be. I want to be the kind of person who's like, the crap is hitting the fan, options.
Yes.
Like, that's why I surround myself with smart, capable people so they can help fill in the gaps when all my ideas have run out.
Picard guides Jake to safety by telling him to like steer the ship right towards the planet and then kind of bounces it right off the atmosphere and they bring him back. And Remick, in the midst of all of this, when Jake is about to die, Remick is like, this is on you if you don't fix it. It's like, get out of my way or get off the bridge, like, or I will have you removed. And I went, yes.
Yes, like talk about moments of anxiety. This was my moment of anxiety when Picard's like getting options and he's trying to figure it out. And he's like, all right, I've got an idea. Do exactly what I say. If you do exactly what I say, I'm going to get you home and you're going to be fine. And he's all like, tell my dad I'm sorry. No, you're telling your dad yourself. Follow my instructions. And Remick's like, he's going to die. And it's all your fault. Like, I wanted to smack him. That was so anxiety producing for me.
Remick, your entire job has been to walk around questioning people's decisions that they made in the heat of the moment and point out how like poor those decisions may have been. And then now you're taking valuable time that could cost this kid his life to remind Picard that he's under the gun. Don't you think he knows that?
Right. Captain Obvious. Thank you. And
yes, Commander Obvious. He wouldn't even make it to Captain Obvious. Commander Obvious, buddy.
So Picard comes up with this new Picard maneuver and bounces the kid off of the atmosphere.
I'm sorry, I need that on a t-shirt. Bounces the kid off the atmosphere. He bounces the shuttlecraft off the atmosphere.
Okay, the shuttlecraft containing the kid off of the atmosphere. And saves the day. And it's like such a big moment. Everyone's like, yeah, high-fiving and everything. Because this kid's alive, and he's like so relieved. And then later on, Jake is walking past Picard, and he just tries to keeps his head down and try to walk past real fast, so like he doesn't notice. And Picard's like, excuse me, young man. And he's like, oh crap. Yeah. Like, I'm surprised that they didn't have a little debrief the second they beamed his butt back onto the ship or whatever, got the shuttlecraft into the shuttle bay. But yeah, I'm like, you definitely, I mean, but again, this is like classic 16-year-old, right? Like, this is the kind of thing you actually have to have a conversation about. We can't pretend like this didn't just happen, right? But you're a kid, so you're like, oh, maybe if I just keep my eyes closed, maybe we won't have to talk about it. And then we have this really special moment with them in the hallway.
Yeah, we did. Well, and honestly, when does pretending it never happened ever work well?
I'm going to go with never.
Yeah, I'm going to go with never too. Because I think people who are desperately trying to avoid a uncomfortable situation could pretend like it never happened, and that may feel good for the moment, but it's like a cancer. It's just going to get worse and worse. Like, you have to address it. You have to address things like that have to be addressed. Anyway, so back on the planet, they're doing that test, and Wesley helps Mordok because Mordok's like starting to lose his grip. He's like, I can't do it. It's going too fast as well. Whatever the test
stressful.
is. Yeah. And in helping Mordok, Wesley cost himself like precious seconds, and Mordok ended up finishing the test with Wesley's help, like first, and then Wesley finished a very close second. And I like that Mordok is a likable character. When the commander in charge comes in and he's like, great job, Mordok, he record time or whatever, Mordok is like, actually, I can't even take the credit, like Wesley helped. And luckily that commander is like, we know, like we saw the whole thing, but we still commend you guys all for like doing a good job, whatever. So I thought that was really nice. Like, that showed nice character on Wesley's behalf, which you hope is there, and on Mordok's behalf too, that he wasn't just like a slime ball, just like took the glory and ran off with it.
Because that would have been like, what, that jerk. And then also Wesley, this was another moment where Wesley was not being obnoxious, because he could have easily been like, oh, the only reason he finished first was because I helped him. Yeah. But he did nothing like that. He just sat there quietly, was just like, he finished first. Like, okay, like that's fair and square.
Yeah,
absolutely. So then Wesley has his big test. Actually, let's back up a little bit. Before Wesley has his big test, their final test is like they have to face their greatest fears. And he's freaking out about this because he's like, but what could it be? Like, what is my greatest fear? And so he's hanging out in the
holodeck.
I was like, transporter room? What is that box called? He's hanging out in the holodeck, just kind of standing there. He's not even running a program. And Worf walks in for some strange reason. Hey guys, what's going on over here?
It's the Counselor Troy coming into the transporter room in Haven. Hey guys, what's going on here? Nothing? All right, I'll go to the cargo hold.
Yeah, he comes in as if he's like trying to fix something inside the holodeck, but when do you have to be in the holodeck to fix the holodeck? I don't know. Anyway, so he walks in like, hey guys, what's going on? And he sees Wesley, and then he gives him actually like a lot of really good and wise advice. And he tells him that, you know what, thinking about what you can't control only wastes energy, and it creates its own enemy. And I was just like, ooh. And then so they have this conversation, and then he's like, listen to me. Only fools have no fear. Because he was like, Worf, I thought you weren't afraid of anything because you're this big, strong warrior. And he was like, only fools have no fear. Yeah. Everyone should be afraid of something. And I just feel like this episode was just like this quote magnet, like quote after quote. I was just like, oh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. Unlike our next episode we're reviewing next week, which has just trash quotes, like just horrible. It's such a contrast for me. But this one, I was like, man, these quotes are just so good. And like,
they're very quotable.
Yeah. And I feel like everything Worf was saying to Wesley was just like, just words to live by, right? This is not just this test. This is just life.
It was a variation of there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Kind of thing, where I thought that was really cool. And I like that the person giving Wesley that bit of wisdom was the character who seems to fear nothing at all. So if like
probably better Worf than Yar, right?
Yeah, Worf than Yar, or better Worf than Troy,
right?
Who would have tried to like therapize him or whatever. And if she's just like, of course I have fears, you're like, okay, well, yeah, that's like believable. But Worf, who's like charging into battle fearlessly, it's like, but his fears are different. They're not conflict based. They're more internal. But anyway, I think that was the perfect person to give him that advice. So
Yeah.
let's talk about, we're kind of going out of sync, but let's talk about his psych test, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
He was told to wait in this room, and they're like, your test will begin shortly, just hang out here for a while. So he goes and hangs out, and then he hears this explosion, and he's kind of like, hello? Like, goes out into the hallway, like, is everything okay? And there's some industrial accident that's happened. He goes in to the room where the accident has happened, and stuff has collapsed and in danger of dying, and contamination field is about to, break or whatever. And really, he can only, like, save one person.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a guy who's injured, and then there's a guy who's, like, in the corner, and he's, like, too scared to, like, come out.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of is trying to coach the guy to come out, but he won't. And he eventually just goes, all right, I need to drag this guy on the floor to safety. Mm-hmm. And as he's dragging him, did you notice he's like, I'm sorry. And he's dragging the guy out.
Yeah, because he's like, help me lift this heavy thing. And he's just like, I can't move. And he's like, you're not injured. Stand up. Like, as he's pulling this guy who's like multiple times his weight, he's a very petite, teenage boy. Yeah. And he's pulling this grown man, and he's just like, you're not injured. You can move. You can walk. You can do this. Come on, stand up. Let's go. Like, he's giving him some really firm coaching, and also empowering him really to be able to save his own life.
Yeah.
And then, he does realize the guy's just not going to move, and he doesn't have time for both of them. And the doors are going to close in 13 seconds, and he's got to get this other guy out. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, I'm really sorry. You're okay. You can come with us, but I can't save you both. I'm really sorry. And you're just like, oh,
yeah.
It's like such a really dramatic moment.
It was. But the reason that this was the perfect psych test for Wesley is because the man who was not injured was basically his dad. Like, that's the same way his dad died. And Captain Picard was in Wesley's shoes, where he had to choose who to try to save. And I think it was this, like, beautifully written sort of poignant lesson in, like, you're not guilty for the death of that crew member. You could only save so many people, and this guy was able to come, but was paralyzed with fear and couldn't come. So I think that actually gave Wesley, like, a nicer understanding of his father's death. And I think Jack Crusher died when Wesley was, like, very, very little, like much younger than 15. So I imagine that he always felt some resentment towards the captain, because Jack Crusher was on Picard's away team. Mm-hmm. And so Picard was responsible for his death in a manner of speaking. But I think that was really, like, a nice way to sort of show Wesley, like, hey man, it's actually not anybody's fault. Like, you did the best you could.
Yeah, and I really like that too. And I like how we get a little backstory of Wesley and of Beverly and their previous relationship with Picard, because we know that we've heard glimpses that Picard was responsible for Jack's death. But we also see that Beverly and Picard have, like, a little thing going, because that was, like, his best friend, which is, I mean, how much does that suck for Picard? And also that he was kind of a second father to Wesley.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, well, how is he responsible for their death, but also they have such a good relationship with him? And then this kind of shows it, where it's like, okay, like, Wesley was too little to really fully understand what was going on, and he was really imprintable, so he couldn't have that grudge, like, 100%. It was also like, but he was the guy who was there for me, and, like, all of that. Yeah. And so for him to see that, and you even hear it when he says, like, oh, you wanted to show me this because of the captain, I mean, because it was nobody's fault, right? Like, he even didn't want to say that it was Picard's fault, right? Even though, like, in his mind, he had been thinking that. Yeah. And then he was able to not only forgive the captain, but also know in himself, like, I can lead, and I can make hard choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was really, really good. It was a great test for Wesley. And he passed it. I mean, and the commander said that, like, there's really no right or wrong choice. But it just sort of gives us a little glimpse into, like, how you might handle a situation like this. And especially one that is so deeply ingrained in you. Anyway, so Remick is sitting here, still interviewing all these people, and he finally gets to Picard. And Picard says, the only thing I'm guilty of is allowing this charade to continue as long as it has. So he finally goes to Quinn, and he's like, what the hell is going on? Like, start explaining, or I'm kicking you both off my ship. You explain. And Admiral Quinn lets Picard know that something is threatening the fabric of the Federation and everything that they've spent the last 200 years building. And they don't know if the threat is coming from the inside or the outside, so they didn't know if they could be sure of Picard and if he's, compromised in some way. But I wish this was teased out a little more, but they just kind of leave it at that. And they're like, okay, now that we know that you're clean, we want to offer you a promotion to admiral, and we want to give you the position of commandant of Starfleet Academy.
Right, because we're afraid that there may be a mole or something on the inside of Starfleet bringing it down. So we want you to be in charge of shaping all of our new minds who come into the academy so that Starfleet will not be compromised in the future. We don't want like a, some kind of double agent in that position compromising all of the new recruits.
Absolutely. So he takes a moment to think about it, and he actually decides not to take the offer to be admiral and commandant of Starfleet. And then we learn down on the planet that Mordok is actually offered the position at Starfleet Academy.
Because only 1 out of 4 can get it.
Which is sucky, but all right. But the commander does say, it would be a shame if the 3 of you did not come back next year to test. Because your scores were very, very close. And Mordok, again, shows that good character. He's like, but I only passed that test because Wesley helped me. And I like that the commander validated that. He's like, yes, he did help you, and you did get a faster time than him, but it wasn't just that. Like, there were other factors that just made you a better candidate. And I think Wesley just totally took it in stride so well. Like, my little heart was like, oh, Wesley, good for you, buddy. Like, you're hanging in.
He was just like, you deserved it, man.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He took it a lot better than Jake, right? Because
like,
that's our parallel,
he's not
right?
Steal 1/4 of a shuttlecraft and take off. Yeah. Jake was not a good candidate, man. He showed that immediately. But
right?
So Wesley comes back up to the ship, and he has this moment with Picard where Picard actually reveals that he himself failed his first attempt at the Starfleet entrance exam. I was like, yes, okay.
He has flaws. And this was such a beautiful moment, too, between them, because you don't see a lot of heart-to-heart between Picard and Wesley because he doesn't like kids, even though he had a heart-to-heart with Jake like 10 seconds earlier. But you don't really see... But, I mean, he did save his life, so that's like a special case. He usually doesn't have heart-to-heart with children on the ship. But you see this moment where he's like, all right, I'll let you into the secret. And he was also telling him, like, this actually made me cry. This was very sweet. I could just be hormonal, but it did make me cry seeing Wesley being like, like in the dark, waiting in there, just saying like, are you disappointed in me? Right? Like, this is the guy who's supposedly responsible for his father's death, but he still wants his approval, and he still sees him like a father figure. And he's like, I failed you. I failed the entire Enterprise. Like, I failed everybody here because everyone was expecting me to pass because I'm this wonderkins. I'm this child genius. And I failed, and like, aren't you disappointed in me? And isn't everybody going to be disappointed in me? And Picard's just like, did you do your best? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. And he's like, well, then you didn't fail. So shut up.
Yeah.
He's just like, you're fine. Like, that's what you did. You do your best, and that's how you don't fail. It's not about passing the test. It's about doing the best that you, again, just so super quotable. And then he lets him in on the secret that he didn't pass. And then he's like, and if you ever tell anyone about this,
I'll kill you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay. So we still want everybody to think that you're totally perfect. Okay, got it. So still some areas to grow.
Yeah, like, I really felt that, like, in my heart when he said, I'm going to let you in on this little secret. I didn't pass the first time. And I felt that specifically because the first time I took my driver's ed test, I didn't pass. And I didn't pass by just a little bit. But I was so devastated. And for somebody to be like, you know what? I actually didn't pass my first attempt as well. Would have been like, okay. Because then, you get to try again in 2 weeks. And I tried again 2 weeks later and I passed and it was fine. But that really, like, for me, that felt like you failed your first attempt too. Oh my God, thank you. Like, you're not this like impervious wall of perfection, and that felt like a nice humanizing moment.
I agree.
That was kind of the end of our episode. Do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
Yes. Okay. We skipped a piece.
Ooh.
So when Quinn and Picard are talking, and he's like, okay, now I understand. And that's why Remick was being such a jerk, is because he was looking for something. And Remick comes in and he gives his report to Quinn where he's just like, I tried my hardest. I tried every trick in the book. I threw everything at everybody. Right. And he was just like, but I couldn't find anything. No one would crack. Like, as much as I dug and dug, I couldn't find anything wrong here. And he was like, I failed you, sir. I'm so sorry. And Quinn's like, no, that's fine. And it's like, so his job was, Quinn wasn't even being totally honest with Remick.
Yes. Quinn basically told Remick, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark and you need to find out what it is. And that was kind of awful because this poor guy is going, it's like telling a kid, like, I hid a treasure somewhere in the house and they're running around and running around. And you don't know if there's a treasure or not. They don't know. And when they can't find it, it's like, I couldn't find it. I did really like the moment that he said, the only thing maybe I would note is that maybe a little sense of like overly familial, or like everybody's a little overly familiar with each other. But that kind of comes from like a sense of teamwork and family. Mm-hmm. And I went, cool. It's nice to see that in season 1, which still like the characters weren't fully developed. Like that was really nice to see. Did you like that moment when he said, my tour of duty is almost over and I would like to be placed on the Enterprise?
I love that scene. He does the biggest eye roll in the galaxy. He didn't even respond to that. I would love to be placed on the Enterprise, sir. No, that's never going to happen. Not in a million years.
Picard essentially pursed his lips and said nothing, as though somebody had just placed like a big pile of cabbage right in front of him. And he was like, immediately.
And so then he's like, okay. And he walks out still hopeful that maybe he could get placed on the Enterprise. And it's like, you've just alienated every single member of the bridge crew.
Everybody hates you.
And you want to now be like, just kidding, guys. Let's be friends. That's not happening.
You know, you're right. I could totally picture Remick walking out of that room and taking a deep breath and being like, that went well. You know, like you walk out of an interview and you're like, aced it, but like, you're never fucking getting hired, dude. Yeah. Nobody wants you around.
Nope, not at all.
It was terrible. So yeah, I know we did skip that. Gosh, I think we did. I mean, this wasn't like a total standout episode. So let's just move on.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. So Shereese, thank you for geeking out with me. Next week, guys, we are reviewing season 1, episode 19, Heart of Glory. That one's got a little meat on the bone, so we'll dig into that next week.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.